So do you think that the war in Ukraine is only the first act of this play, and you can see a continuation? So do you think there'll be a continuation, another war? If yes, where?
Indeed, if you look at the situation, the U.S. just released $6 billion to Iran. There's no strings attached. What's Iran gonna do with the billions of dollars that's being released?
Oh, don't you know they'll build a peaceful?
Yeah, if you look at the overtures from Saudi Arabia to Israel, I'm more convinced today now than ever that Israel should play it neutral because you don't know what's going to happen with the Republican Party. Remember Tucker Carlson.
Right.
Don't forget Tucker Carlson. So you don't know what's going to happen to the Republican Party because they've been taken over by the same powers that control the Democratic Party. So you have one central group putting Americans at odds with each other and the world at odds with each other. And they have investments in all these other countries that also want a multipolar world. So at some point we have to ask ourselves, is there one group playing both sides of the chessboard? And who benefits if this conflict continues? Obviously there's conflicts going on all over the world. And why didn't they settle in Ukraine? I remember we were pulling back from the east side of Ukraine and there was...
And Aaron was in Ukraine many, many times, helping out.
We were pulling back. The Red Cross had already pulled back, and we were pulling back because Mariupol was going to fall. And in the middle of that, there were peace overtures to come to a settlement. And who was it that stepped in to say no to the peace overtures? It was the U.S. government. The U.S. government did not want to settle the conflict then. But now, as Ukraine fatigue is setting in, we're finding that amongst the Republicans and amongst the Democrats, Ukraine fatigue is setting in. So at a certain point, when that fatigue hits its point, now they can control the media and can control the narrative of it, but at a certain point, when the fatigue reaches its 0 point, there will be a settlement. And what will be the consequences of that? I'd be interested to hear what you think of that, Michael.
Well, at the moment, there is no indication of any peace talks. I mean, what we see now is they try to bring this up, but Russians obviously are not ready because it's a joke. Zelensky himself said, I will never sit down with Putin to negotiate. So what peace talks could there be? There will be no peace talks. What we see now is there are almost no men left in Ukraine. They're all butchered, killed, and many who had money, they fled to Europe.
Now they're drafting women.
Now they're drafting women. Now they're considering drafting 16-year-olds. Now, why do I care about this? Because there's a very big Jewish community in Ukraine, and they're orphans. And who else will think about them if not us, the world Jewry, and the state of Israel? So we have to do whatever we can to help them out. I mean, they're our brothers and sisters. The same is true for Russia, and the same is true for those Jewish communities like in Lugansk and Donetsk. There's synagogues over there, there's Chabad over there, there are pensioners over there. There are Jewish people on both sides. It's like World War I. Jews were fighting and for Germany, and for France, and for Russia, and for America. To us, it's not our war, but it's our brothers and sisters that are sitting over there. And what I foresee, answering your question, is the war will become more and more bitter, and the front is likely to collapse. And I'm not sure that Ukraine will remain as an independent state, at least in the borders in which it exists at the moment. This is my simple logical thinking.
When you look at it this way, do you believe that it could be a failure of the EU's policy? Because we see also the European Union, its maybe biggest funder and ammunition supplier for what's going on in the conflict for Ukraine, more than the US even, it could be.
True. For sure, it's a failure. And if we look into it, you'll see that most of those ammunitions are old. And why they're doing is to empty everything out and to bring in new technologies for themselves. And they don't care about Ukraine. Nobody cares about Ukraine. And for sure, they have their own desires to grab back those lands that originally belonged to them. We'll talk about Poland or Hungary or Romania, right? So it's not as simple. But once again, this is not our agenda. Our agenda is to save the Jewish community over there, I think. And I would agree with all the speakers, and I think we have a consensus here today that the neutrality of the Israeli government, the neutrality is the greatest wisdom, which followed and Netanyahu and Bennett and Lapid, and it doesn't matter. They all followed because they understood the disaster if we will jump into this hell.